So, first question, did this movie live up to the hype? You go first.
I think so. So first of all, I want to say I absolutely loved Endgame. I thought it was like the perfect conclusion to this phase of the MCU. I thought it was emotionally devastating to the point where, like, I was bawling afterwards. I could tell you just because I went with a big group to see Infinity War last year. I was broken after that movie, and I was broken after Endgame, like for two very different reasons. But It hits a lot of the same emotional beats that you're used to in Marvel movies. It's a lot of fun. It provides a sense of catharsis that I think, people were expecting.
Definitely. Because obviously in the last movie, it was a huge cliffhanger. Things are left off very grim and dark. And I think this leads in from that very well. Like, just the way, not that I expected, but the way that I wanted it to. It does a lot of things that I've always wanted to see happen in the MCU with all these different characters that have been built up this whole time. It hit a lot of beats that I wanted it to, and ultimately it was just a very, very satisfying conclusion to this 11 years now that we've been invested in this?
So, the first Iron Man came out in 2008, so it's been 11 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't feel like that long, because if you think about it, that's not a huge window for 22 movies, 23.
Yeah, I think it was 22. I think this was the 22nd. Yeah,
like, have you ever heard of that? You could essentially count these movies in one franchise, and have you ever heard of that many, like 23 movies in a decade? That's unprecedented. Yeah,
they really achieved something that I don't think anyone thought was possible prior to, like, this movie coming out. It's really just amazing what Kevin Feige and just a series of talented directors put together. I really don't think people would have thought it could have come to this point 11 years ago.
I don't think it'll come to this point again. Like, I don't know how much Kevin Feige specifically has had a hand in each of these movies, but I feel like he's definitely something that other companies like DC or even the Universal Dark Universe have lacked. Is one guy there who will keep a consistent quality and, tonal consistency and everything like that to just keep all these movies at a certain standard that people expect. Kind of like, I use the analogy, and it's not to reduce it in any way, but it's like, let's say you like Domino's Pizza. Everywhere you go, you expect Domino's Pizza to taste as good as it does back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like with the movies. You watch them and you expect them to be mostly as good as the other ones that you've seen, and you expect, a certain type of tone and everything like that, certain types of visuals, and I think they've really done that, and it's definitely the gold standard of how to build a shared universe on film, and I think it maybe forever will be, except for maybe like somewhere after 2050 or in the 22nd century, maybe they might do something that could top it.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, we pointed out when Shazam came out that DC is starting to gain momentum, but, they're nowhere near Marvel in terms of success, in terms of really any sort of metric that could compare the two. I do want to point out, like, as of the time we're recording this, Endgame's only been out for a weekend. It's already gotten the highest global box office returns of all time, or in a 1 weekend span,
Yep.
It passed $1 billion, which is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
$1
billion in 3 days. Actually, it's 4 days.
Yeah, well, technically, the Sunday returns haven't even come out yet. Like, we're recording this on a Sunday night, so it could have it could have passed that point by the time this comes out. That's the insane part, Yeah. Like, for reference, like the first Avengers movie, I think its total gross was $1 billion.
For reference, Justice League made 600-something million, and Avengers did that like overnight almost, or like in a couple days.
It hit the 600 million mark, I think, the day after I saw it, which was that Thursday. So, it's insane just how much the fandom flocked to this movie. I shouldn't say insane. Like, I expected it to gross a lot out of the gate, but $1 billion, like,
it's still insane though. But it just goes to show you like how big of a following it's garnered over these years.
Yeah, so I forget what the exact metric was. I think what Infinity War I think made around 600 million its opening weekend, which again is actually really impressive for a movie in general. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest if Endgame became the highest grossing movie of all time, especially when you consider Infinity War was the fourth highest, and that was like on the low end of 2 billion. So it wouldn't shock me if it got to that point. Give it like a month, I think it'll get to that point.
I think Disney's investors are very happy right now.
Without a doubt.
They're walking around with huge pockets of gold. And like, to compare this to Star Wars, Force Awakens made around 2 billion worldwide, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but then The Last Jedi made around, like, what, 1.3? I could be wrong, but it definitely didn't make 2 billion. So
Yeah,
you kind of saw, like, a drop-off from huge movie to the next huge movie, but Avengers, Marvel, it just keeps going. Well, Captain Marvel, which is, like, still playing in some theaters, made over 1 billion, and now this one did it in a weekend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I can tell you for a fact, like, Captain Marvel's still playing in the theater by May, so people aren't over it. I mean, it's, you know, it's Marvel. They'll see any of their movies as many times as necessary. But, yeah, I mean, it doesn't shock me in the slightest that it's sort of reaching this level of success, especially when you have just so much hype surrounding this movie for the past year, when you have so much hype as a result of Infinity War. I do want to say I think Infinity War was the better movie, but you know I also haven't had as much time to digest Endgame, and I've also seen Infinity War like 7 times. So, yeah, I mean it doesn't shock me.
Well, I will say I did like Endgame better, specifically, and I won't say anything spoiler yet, for the reason that I think there were more plot holes in Infinity War that I could easily pick apart than in this one. In this one, I was more like, there wasn't really anything too big. So, you know, I'm okay with it. I'm satisfied. I walk out and I'm like, yeah, you know, it was all very good. Very good. My mind is at rest.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should give it a few more watchings before you like completely pass a perfection judgment. But
no, not perfection. Just, you know, not too many glaring flaws that kind of make me say, well, yeah, that was really good, but what about this thing that's kind of obvious? Like, I always say Thanos' motivation was really weak, like the way it was explained. Like, I've seen videos on YouTube that say Thanos is the perfect villain.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. In order to have a perfect villain, he has to have a motivation that you could get behind. Like, you say, you know what, if I think about it that way, I can understand. This is Thanos' motivation. Yeah, so my planet was, like, running out of food and stuff like that, so I decided to just start killing everyone. Not just there, but all around the universe, and, yeah, you all should be grateful. First of all, the population's just gonna build back up again everywhere, so how is that a permanent solution? Second, you have something that can do everything, so why not just... I mean, like Neil deGrasse Tyson said in an interview, the universe is so abundant with matter that you never run out of resources anyway, if you're a spacefaring species.
Okay, so couple things I have to say. So first of all, I do want to talk about Thanos' motivations in Endgame, just because there is sort of a drastic shift there from Infinity War. I shouldn't say drastic, but like we'll get into that in a minute. Just to defend Thanos' explanation, first of all, carrying capacities on an individual ecosystem, very much a real thing. Like some people who are way smarter than the two of us are predicting that by the time we hit a population of like 14 billion, we'll no longer be able to support it. Like even if we mined the earth for all it was worth and gave to all those people, we'd just never be able to hit that point. Yeah. So, you know, there's definitely something to be said about carrying capacity. That being said, we're nowhere near that point right now, and we still have people starving. As for it's true to the point that like a snap and just slashing half the population in half would probably cause as many issues as it would solve. But at the same time, I think Thanos' reasoning for doing that was, oh, hey, he's sending a message. Like, he can do this as many times as he wants, as far as these people know. He can do this to the point that, you know, like, he could perpetually keep halvening the world until they learn their lesson and until they stopped multiplying to an unhealthy degree. At least that was my reading.
Yeah, like that would make more sense, like, to me, if his intention was to basically become a god in the eye of everybody in the universe. But I don't think it was, because he just retires to a little hut and starts farming grapes or something. He starts a little wine farm. What are they called?
Vineyard?
Yes, he starts his own little vineyard.
I thought he was farming corn or something. I don't know, it's sort of vague.
I'm just making it up.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we've gone as far as we can with the spoiler-free stuff.
And for one last thing, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't like Captain Marvel, I would say you don't have to worry because she's not in it that much. She did not have as big as a role as I thought. That's not really a spoiler. That's just a commentary on the movie itself.
So she's not in it that much to begin with. I will say Captain Marvel, completely unnecessary if you're looking to get into Endgame. Like, it does absolutely nothing to, like, support the character. To the point where, like, and we were talking before we started recording about this, like, they built up Captain Marvel as being this ultimate force, like, the turning tide against Thanos. She has, like, no impact in Endgame whatsoever. And, like, again, there are some small moments where, like, she does have importance, but they could have easily written her out and no one would have noticed.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's mostly true.
Okay.
But she does have a cool moment, which I like. So I think we've talked long enough without spoilers. Definitely see this freaking movie if you haven't. I know probably anyone who's listening to this probably has either seen it or intends to, and they're just waiting for tickets to open up. Like, even where I live, in the middle of nowhere, almost all the seats were taken up. In the morning too.
Yeah. So I went to the latest possible showtime opening night, and it was completely packed, like completely filled. And every single theater in this whole cinema was like showing Endgame, you know. So it's like people had so many options, and it was just completely sold out.
Yeah. My brother said, he lives in the Bronx. He said in the theater by him, they actually opened up showings for 7:30 in the morning. Because they have to add that many more showings to accommodate the massive amount of people that are flocking to this. And there you go. Over $1 billion in a weekend. It shows.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me in the slightest. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a good movie. What you just saw was a clip from our full show, the Utterly Nonsense Podcast, which airs every Friday. So click any of the links on the screen or subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. And let us know in the comments what you think. Thanks for listening.